Welcome back to Schindler's Gist. I'm Martha Jean Schindler, and my co-host that you're going to hear from later on in this episode is Tyler Cluth. And this is episode 2, which was recorded on Thursday, April 2nd. If you haven't already listened to episode 1 yet, please go do that. We covered how the organization I run called North Georgia Community Action Network, or NGA CAN, got started, what Indivisible is, and why two people like Tyler and me with pretty different political backgrounds decided to make a podcast together. Before we get into episode 2, though, I want to do our fact checks. First, Tyler and I throw around a couple of famous quotes, and we get both of them wrong. When we get into the democracy conversation near the end of the episode, I say something like, wasn't it Ben Franklin who said democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others? And Tyler suggests it might have been Alexander Hamilton. It was neither. In fact, that quote belongs to Winston Churchill from a 1947 speech to the House of Commons. Similarly, Tyler attributes the idea that government is a necessary evil to Hamilton, the quote about that. The actual quote, "Government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil," is from Thomas Paine in his paper Common Sense, which was published in 1776. It's an easy mix-up given the era, but worth getting right. And third, I say at one point that voter turnout is less than a third of the population. And that's way too low for presidential elections, which is what I think I was referring to. I was probably averaging out a bunch of elections and saying I think it's less than a third of the population usually votes. That's apparently kind of wrong on a lot of measurements. So presidential elections typically see 55 to 65% of eligible voters showing up to the polls. For midterms, it's closer to 40 to 50%, which was a lot higher than I expected. For local elections, which is what we're talking about most in this episode, turnout definitely often falls under a third, sometimes well under a third. So when we're talking about how many people show up to vote, we just need to be more careful about which election we're talking about and be more specific. And finally, I described someone open carrying at a Woodstock intersection as having an AK-47. Tyler catches this in real time, and he's mostly right. A fully automatic AK-47 is heavily restricted and rarely what I would be seeing out in the wild. However, semi-automatic AK pattern rifles are very widely available and are commonly called AK-47s in casual conversation, so I may not have been entirely wrong, just imprecise. AK style rifle is a safer call. Calling it an AR-15 is also fine. I am not a gun expert like my dad was, and I just called it what somebody else called it, and who knows if it was correct or not. I know some of the people who come out and protest with us are highly knowledgeable about guns. If that sounds weird to you, we're in the South. Guns are everywhere. But who knows what it really is. I'd have to go up and ask or look at it closer than I want to be to this guy, so it's not going to happen. All right, so let's get into episode 2. You had notes you wanted to go over?
Well, no, I just got a couple things that were going to
Okay.
pertain to the conversation. So I guess the one thing is like this is all our pre-ramble, but yeah, I guess we'll start with like a launching type introduction,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think I want to know what you did for the because you organized for No Kings and all that. So I want to hear all about that, your
Okay.
organization and then doing it. And then I have thoughts of No Kings where I think that we can get into more of a broad conversation about about my thoughts and about the No King stuff
Mm-hmm.
and I think democracy as a whole, or
Mm-hmm.
what people think of as democracy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that should give us more. I mean, I'm sure we could probably babble at each other for hours about it. So,
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, and I had down that we are gonna want to, yeah, so I had down the same thing. Um,
okay,
so first, um, we hosted, I have probably like for another episode, it would probably be interesting to go into the long backstory of our organization. but because there's like some whys and wherefores that get more interesting the more you know about it, but it's also kind of drama because in the activism space, particularly when you're at the beginning of any I think when an effort is new, most of the people who are engaged in it are strong personalities, right? Like these are
Yep.
not necessarily the same people who put on a suit and tie and go clock in at a corporate job and, sign off their emails at the right way, right? These are,
Yeah, no, you have to be like outgoing
yes.
and
And so
not
strong
afraid of
personality,
public speaking and
yeah.
altercation and
Yeah. And so there's always drama in activism spaces, but I think particularly left of center because a hallmark of conservatism and the right is falling in line, um, not making waves. There's more there's more effort at being similar to everyone. And I'm curious if you disagree, but I mean lowercase conservatism. Um,
gotcha.
And then, like, if you look at leftists, and even saying leftist, and in my intro of the first episode, even say, like, I'm leftist, liberal. If you're a true leftist, you would say, you would probably call me like a moderate liberal or something because I'm not a full-blown anarchist. That's like, true leftist is like anarchist or communistic or something in that
Yeah,
direction, I think.
they're communists, and I don't they're not liberal.
Are they
Uh,
ever
you,
anarchists? Maybe it's just because I listened to the Behind the
you
Bastards
can be
podcast.
like an anarcho commie.
Yeah, yeah. The podcast. Some of my favorite podcasts have a lot of communists and anarcho-communists, which it hurts my brain
Yeah,
sometimes to think about. But
but it's not liberal because like the idea of like being liberal like that's what a libertarian is was a classic liberal
oh,
believing
really?
in
That's truly liberal?
yeah truly liberal is believing in people's rights.
So then we'll also have to get into the difference between textbook definition and how those words are used too.
Exactly, because I think there's a big problem where people call the left liberals, and they're
Yes.
illiberal, like they don't
Yes.
believe in free speech. So that's not a liberal quality.
That's interesting. They don't believe in free speech. Do you think that's true of everyone who has, is it like, do you think that's true of Democrats that they tend not to believe in free speech? True
Well,
free speech?
it's honestly it's most Democrats and Republicans at this
Okay.
point. They just believe in censoring speech in different areas.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll put a
You
pin in
know,
that. Because
yeah,
I
but
think
yeah,
that's
no,
really
that'd be a really
interesting.
fun. I think that'd be
Yeah,
a fun episode, just like definitions and how they land and where they are and
yeah, yeah. At some point we can go through the drama because, like in theory, if you're anti-authoritarian, anti-fascist, in theory that should be a big tent, right? In theory that should probably include libertarians, include
yeah.
anarchists, include whatever liberal and liberal adjacent and leftist adjacent or whatever.
Well,
Like
see,
it's
but it can't include leftists because they're socialists and communists, and that is
well,
fascism.
well, there are the democratic socialists and then there are the tanky socialists, which I don't even know how much of a derogatory term that is. Like I don't know if that's like saying the F
Tankies, yeah, I
word
think it. I
adjacently.
mean, I don't think it hurts anybody's feelings, but I think it was, yeah, derogatory.
So, because that's my understanding, and whether or not an outsider looking in believes that they are different and that one of them is not, and that they are or not both authoritarian, at least the people who adhere to it believe that they are separating authoritarian leadership from the economic solution or not. And the tankies just are more, we don't care how we get to communism. We need to get to communism. And if it takes a strong authoritarian leader, fuck it, we'll take it. Uh,
Hmm.
so,
But the
but
only
in,
way to maintain that is authoritarian. You can't maintain communism outside of a small community without an authoritative state.
well, so far, I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
and that's,
I'm saying, like, from my understanding and my philosophy, communism and socialism cannot work without an authoritarian state. it can't because you have to force people to contribute against their will. Like not everybody's going to want to pay 50% of their labor wage in taxes.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
the only way to do it is like our country, you go to jail then.
Or
That's
going
authoritarian.
going going back to the argument of it can only be small groups. I mean, if you had literally everyone, if we had freedom to, and this is there's some like if you read certain science fiction books, you'll get into some theories that people become more tribal and that you are not like your nation state isn't necessarily just your geographic area. It's where you basically like have a membership card to and that like one of the books that did this is called Diamond Age, and it's really interesting. And so people in were divided up more into, yeah, for lack of a better word, tribes, but they might be really large. Like they could be as big as China, and you just this is the
Mhm.
number of people who all agree that this is how I want to run things. Um, so in theory, I guess if a billion people wanted to all be communist country and we had actual like freedom for people to assemble in those ways, which I guess is the anarcho-communist. My understanding is that anarcho-communists kind of believe in you have self-determination and free will over how you are like how you organize, and it just happens that everybody decided to be communist, right? I'd love for some.
Yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
but anarcho-communism falls apart at the point of the communist part, though. As soon as one person doesn't want to contribute, do you let them be free and not contribute, or do you by force make them contribute?
I guess I mean, I guess it's similar to how any of our laws work, where if you are agreeing to live in this society, you're agreeing to follow laws, even ones you don't necessarily agree with, because the because there are punishments for not following it, in theory. There's
Mhm.
consequences. So maybe you could say, okay, anarcho-communist, you don't want to give all your grain to the community this year. You don't have to. We're not going to make you, but we're not going to renew your membership in our tribe next year. Or you have to pay us more of this other crop or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever they decide to do. Um,
See, and that's where I fall off, where you're better with like an anarcho-capitalism because it's all voluntary. Like that's the difference between voluntarism or volunteerism and coercion.
is there not a middle? Because capitalism versus communism to me mostly means like the economic stuff. And then couldn't you make this stuff voluntary? Because we almost always have some sort of a blend between capitalism and communism.
Yeah,
We,
well, I mean, I would say we're not so communism is like a theory of not a state. It's supposed to be larger than a state. So I mean, it's a blend of capitalism and socialism. Because socialism still allows a state. A full communist that really doesn't wants everybody to be communist with no like borders. Like it's a worldwide ideology.
mm, interesting. Okay,
So
cool.
like that's why the Soviet Union kept wanting to expand because the idea of communism is it's as much as you can have. You don't want the borders. Where
Hmm.
socialism allows you to be a state in theory more, but it's still doing the same thing though. Like the only way to get people like to get the whole population on board is you there has to be a punishment if you don't want to.
Hmm.
You know, if I don't pay my property taxes, the state takes my house, even if I own it.
Yeah.
So that's coercion. That's not voluntary.
Hmm.
Like just to put it like simply, because that's what we have. We have a mix. I mean, our
Yeah.
most of our money is spent on what they call entitlements, which is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff. That's what most of the budget is.
I thought most of our budget was now military and that the rest of the stuff was now
No,
second to that.
yeah, military's 1 trillion right now. We spend 7 trillion a year. we bring in 5 trillion a year, already a huge problem. And 1 trillion of the 7 trillion is Pentagon, is military funding.
Hmm. This reminds me of something else that I did a fact check on. And it was the 35 cents of every dollar for the education thing. And what my LLM said was that the Department of Education reports much lower administrative costs. Because what you said was 35 cents of every dollar goes to administrative costs. And it said, however, there is a libertarian argument that could make it come up to 35 cents of every dollar, because the libertarian argument says we pay taxes or something like that. It basically accounts for added costs and back and forth of monies. Does that make sense?
Yes,
And is
it's
that
the
what
back and forth.
and that's what you meant by the 35 cents per dollar?
Yes, and that was a quote from the person that runs the Heritage Foundation.
I don't trust them though, at all. They want women to not be able to vote.
I don't think they necessarily want that.
Yeah, they do. Dude, the dude that's in Project 2025. Like I will die on that hill. Here, let me see. Heritage Foundation, because they're the ones that are doing the Save Act and all that.
Yeah, the SAVE Act isn't saying they don't want women to vote. They just the
Kind of
same
is.
as a stupid. So the real ID is no different than the SAVE Act. So, and the Democrats passed the real ID. Like you have to get your real ID, you have to do the exact same thing that you have to do to register to vote in the SAVE Act. You gotta go to the DMV with your birth certificate
Okay,
and the
it's
government.
let's see. Several of them have said things like this. Um, so I'm sure I have seen like a speech where the guy was basically quoted. So yeah, they really want, I mean, they make it pretty clear that they don't want women to vote, that they want, well, that
I
that
don't think
they,
so because the SAVE Act just says if you change your name, which you have to do through the Social Security Administration anyway, that to register you have to have your birth certificate, which you need to do when you change your name, and go through the same channels it takes to get the real ID.
mm-hmm.
Like, so I don't really think it's anything that crazy.
Hang
No,
on
I'm
a
not
sec.
saying that people that work there might, they might be more extreme. I'm not a supporter of the Heritage Foundation, but
Yeah.
I don't, I mean, I'm not gonna, I don't like to, like, I'm not on, they're conservative Republicans. But I'm also like, I'm not against it, if I think something they're saying is factual, to quote them, same as any like left wing think tanks too. Like just because they're left wing or right wing doesn't necessarily mean they're lying. So that's just one thing that I listened to a interview with a person at the Heritage Foundation that ran a bunch of that stuff. Um, Then that was more like, yeah, about like the Department of Education and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not against take a, as long as the information's good, but I don't care what side it comes from.
Well, I don't trust them if they are extremely biased. Okay, so one of the guys, at least one of the guys has said something that he said was a joke about rethinking the 19th Amendment. He said it was a joke, but I don't think that's a very funny joke.
Oh
And
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's balloons out there like that and all of that. But like,
a lot of
I
the things
mean,
that they want to do seem to be targeting women. Policies structurally designed to structurally reduce women's independence, economic power, and political influence is one summary.
Yeah, and they may. Like I said, I was quoting off
Yeah,
of
yeah,
a
okay.
discussion about the Department of Education.
Yeah.
And I don't think when they're bringing numbers like that up, it has nothing to do with male, female. Like it is a tax and cost kind of argument.
Well, put me in the camp that is strongly biased against Heritage Foundation. I just, for better or worse, I don't trust them as far as I can throw them.
Yeah. I mean, I just, you can go the opposite way. Like, I'm not gonna believe, like, our public education system's a disaster. So, like,
It
I'm
is a
also not gonna be
disaster.
like, yeah, they're doing so good
Well, the
according to
thing
like
is,
these numbers.
if you don't have leadership by people who actually want to do the right thing, then you are not rewarded. There is no reward to putting out accurate information that makes it look like you're messing up at all. Like if what people want is an easy solution and they want to never have problems so that they don't have to try to fix them, then you have entire institutions, companies. I mean, even if you look at, you know, corporations that where you will get in trouble if you say, "Hey, our sale numbers are down and here's the actual reason," and it's something that somebody doesn't want to hear, then you can't trust anything that they say anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, particularly right now, it's really hard to trust any information coming out of any government entity. You basically, to me, the ones that are most trustworthy are the ones that have had long-term scientists working on things because culturally they tend to dislike obvious flagrant lies. Like I'm talking about CDC and Sig, I think it's SIGRAP or something. I listened to a podcast from Sig, is it SIGRAP or SIGRAP? I don't remember. But it's one of the big health organizations. But even then, like anything coming out of recent administrations is questionable because we've just continually gotten more and more screwed up
Yeah,
on and more biased data. And it's like, how are you supposed to make good decisions if the data that you're using to make the decision is screwy?
yeah. I mean, I think it's good to not trust much that comes out of the government's mouth and any
Yeah.
of their organizations. I think that's where you got to start to
Mm-hmm.
put on my conspiracy hat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyway, I completely derailed us. I was going to tell you
Yep,
about
no,
No
that's all
Kings.
right.
So this is the second No Kings. They had two No Kings events last year. I think they had their first, I think their first event was hands off. No, their first event was No Kings. And there is Indivisible, I think, led the charge on the No Kings. Indivisible is a big organization here. We can do.
Yeah, we actually, I think we covered Indivisible pretty good in the first episode.
Yes, yes. So any event that they put on that they get a lot of their partners to participate in is going to be big. These people are really well connected. They're big enough that even Donald Trump has referred to them in speeches and I think, criticized them because he doesn't like them. So anytime they put on an event, we try to support it because it's going to be a big one. And some of what we do is just trying to meet expectations of people who want to participate in some kind of resistance movement, civic action and resistance movement. So if people want to know Kings, we do know Kings. So they did two No Kings last year, and they also interspersed it with a hands off. I think they were just kind of trying out different messaging, and for whatever reason, we're still sticking with No Kings. I think No Kings is one of the dumber messages because it is just waiting for somebody to say, well, we don't have a king. And it's like, duh. Like, this is not the point of the No Kings is saying there is executive overreach, and the executive branch is doing things that are king like and unilateral, and we want to take that back. But I would argue that happened before and they didn't fuss about it too much. I do think things have gotten to a kind of tipping point, but I would like to see a different cry than no kings.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'm just gonna say, like, I agree with you. Like, that's the problem with the No Kings messaging. I think one big problem of the No Kings messaging is that everybody that marched, like, I'm gonna put my bet, not everybody, but I would say over 90% of the people that were out marching this weekend are going to vote Democrat in the midterms and for the next presidential election. And that means that you didn't really understand what you were marching for, and you missed the point completely because it's the same machine. It doesn't matter if they're red or blue, the machine is the same. The king is the two-party government system. You know,
I I think
all of our presidents abuse their executive power.
I think I mostly agree with you, and I think I have the perspective a little bit more of it being very difficult. It is very difficult to get people to change things radically, and I think to a certain extent, like if we didn't say, "Hey, vote for the Democrats," vote for some alternative, I think people's heads would explode and then we would just have even less participation and we would still have the two-party system. I don't know. Maybe I
But
don't
see, I
have as
think
much.
that's the inherent flaw in all of this. Like that is because at the end of the day, still voting to keep up the system
Yeah.
that is aggressively taking our rights. Like
I would
if
like to
if
see like
Gavin
I
Newsom runs for president and he wins, like nothing was achieved.
no, I agree. I agree. I would like to see from these organizers something a little more extreme and to a certain extent they're kind of leaning in that direction. I think, but it is fighting the two-party system to me is way harder than fighting a single bad candidate. And I kind of think they're looking for a less bad devil that they know. And maybe there isn't that much thought. Maybe there are more people who just believe in the two-party system, believe that the Democrats have the way. But I don't hear a lot of people saying, you know what, I'm so excited about this Democrat, and they are really, they have such moral clarity on the issues. I'm so proud of us. Like, I don't hear that from people. I'm hearing increasing disgruntledness in general towards the parties, particularly on a national level. Locally,
Yep.
like we have good candidates who have to align with one or the other. Locally, who I think, they're like, yeah, I'm running as a Democrat because that's the only real choice that is likely to get me elected. Um, I don't know.
See, well, and that's I mean, this is why I am part of the Libertarian Party because there are choices, and for people that are very left, there is the Green Party, and you stop wasting your time with the Democrats, and like because the only way we vote our way out of the situation is different parties.
Isn't Jill Stein in the Green
It's the
Party?
only way.
Isn't Jill Stein in the Green Party?
Yeah.
I don't know how true this is, but it seems like I don't know if this is bots, I don't know if this is propaganda, but I see a lot of criticism about her, and I've seen more of it this like in the past year. And people call her a Russian agent because they say she only comes out during elections. I don't know if that's true or not, but they're like she only pops her head out of her gopher hole during an election, and it seems like what she's doing is dividing the non-Republican, non-conservative vote. And
See, okay, so
and so a lot of
I,
people, like there are a lot of people who are just, and again, I don't know if these are bots or real people or people in cat suits on Reddit, but there are a lot of people who are very convinced she's a Russian agent, and they've had some decent arguments for why that might be the case. Because I definitely don't hear about her in between elections. I don't know anything about her other than that she pops up and runs.
So, yeah, she gets the most airtime during presidential election. She's ran as the Green Party candidate around 3 times, I think, the last three, at least
At
two.
least she's been around for a long time.
But I mean, you don't hear as much from libertarians up until you don't get the microphone as much. Starting to more with independent media and all that, but you don't get the microphone as much. Presidential election's the biggest stage. Where I think you got it wrong is Jill Stein is not splitting the conservative Republican vote. She splits the
I'm
Democrat
that's
vote.
yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant was that
Okay.
they split
So this
the
is
vote of
a
everyone who is not conservative Democrat.
yeah,
Like,
okay.
I mean, conservative
So this is
Republican,
a
Jesus.
yep. This is a DNC party talking point to smear her to get everybody disillusioned to say you're wasting a vote. Like this is why I say if you vote for a Democrat, especially in federal elections, you support kings because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party act as kings. So the Democrats do everything they can to keep the Green Party off the ballot in the states so that they can't siphon off Democrat votes. And that's a party apparatus operation. Just like how people say, like libertarians, if they're on the ticket, they're going to siphon away Republican votes. So they don't want libertarians running on the ticket because they think that they're taking votes away. That's what Democrats say too. She's taking votes from us. When the actual truth is like, no, you're not earning the votes, and people want a different choice. So
Hmm.
instead of earning the citizens' votes, they'd rather make ballot access so challenging that they get to run unopposed. And
So
both parties do this.
if you know, let's pretend in the last election, let's pretend that there was a voter who did genuinely think Donald Trump was a very bad thing. That not just Trump himself, but the machine behind him, all that stuff is very, very bad. They also thought that Kamala Harris and the two-party system sucks, but they don't think that the Kamala Harris thing is going to cause as much death and suffering as Trump might. But because they don't like her, they decide to vote for Jill Stein. They decide to vote for the Green Party.
Yep.
Based on everything we know about how the elections are working right now, there is no way that the person voting in the last election who voted for Jill Stein would believe that Jill, oh, it thinks I'm raising my hand. Go away, little. Um, would believe there's no way that they would believe that Kamala Harris, that their vote would be for that their vote would win. They know Jill Stein is not going to win, but they are committed and they believe they ought to support Jill Stein. So then Donald Trump wins. And that person is looking at it and they're like, yeah, Donald Trump really does suck. And so now I got the worst of the two evils that actually were going to get elected. To me, that is a problem as long as we have really bad candidates, which I would argue Trump is unusually bad, and that all signs pointed to him being unusually bad. As long as we have something like that, where we have really, really bad and just kind of bad, and then essentially, yes, statistically, we can guarantee, we can bet money. Nobody is betting in call sheet that Jill Stein was going to win last time, you know? They're probably not going to bet that she's going to win this next election. Does that make sense to continue to vote for her in those cases? And how do you overcome? It's like a chicken egg situation. How do you overcome this two-party system if we continue to get into these situations, which it seems like we're going to as long as people get further and further apart, ideologically speaking? Is my
So
question
I
making
think,
any sense?
yeah. I think the poison pill in this argument is what I always hear from the older generation. You do that, you're wasting your vote. That's what I've been told time and time again. You're wasting your vote. There's no such thing as a wasted vote. If you believe in democracy, people should be able to support who they want to support. It's a choice. If you think both candidates are awful and there's a candidate you agree with that might not win and you want to vote for them, that is showing numbers of people, that's showing the disapproval, the people that
I
are willing to show disapproval.
so I
So,
agree. Oh, sorry.
so I think the problem here is the messaging. Is everybody is from right out of the gates when you're taught about politics and government, and I've been told this time and time again, like you have to vote for the better of the two evils. It's like, no, you don't. If all those people were serious about no kings, and that protest was pretty much majority, 90+% left. If they go to the ballot box and they vote for the Green Party instead of Democrat, the Green Party wins.
Can
Like,
you
so if
hear
you're
the
actually disillusioned with the system, don't vote for the system. And there is an option.
can you
Like,
hear
it
the
could
leaf
be
blower?
tried, but huh?
Sorry, can you hear the leaf blower?
No.
Okay, keep talking. Sorry, I just
But
didn't want
no,
it
you're
covering
good.
up your talking.
But no, I think that's the problem is everybody's beaten into like, yeah, we want to support other things. We don't support, all of this things that our government is doing. But then come, voting day, everybody falls in line and they vote red or blue. It's like, just don't. Like, it could change in one election if you just don't. You don't have to vote for Kamala Harris. You don't have to vote for Donald Trump. Like,
So
and what
I
we need is to get to that. People need to get to that point where we're finally willing to break that stigma of you can't vote for anything else.
I definitely agree with you in theory, but I think the lesser of two evils. So in
It
this
scares people.
example, huh?
It's the lesser of two evils scares people into voting for the
Well,
two party.
well, no, I think it was an actual. I like in my example. I think most people should have looked at Donald Trump based on what we knew about. We had already seen him as a president once. And I feel like most people should have looked at that and said, that was really bad. It's only going to get worse. And that's without all the other evidence we had of, you know, we had a lot of things going on during the campaigning, knowing what we knew about J.D. Vance, knowing what we know about Palantir and Peter Thiel and their association um, with the uh, Trump regime. I'm going to keep calling it regime because that's just what I do. Um, I feel like most people, whether or not you agree, most people should have thought that the Trump machine was going to be worse than whatever Kamala and Democrats threw out. And I think that if you think it was genuinely going to be worse, and I have a good friend who voted for Jill Stein. They are very much like we need three parties, we need or not even three parties. They're like, we need ranked choice voting, we need more options. The two-party system sucks. Like they're on the same train as you. And I would agree with that, but they actively did not think that Donald Trump would be able to do a lot of the things that have happened.
Well,
They
and he wouldn't be able to if our Congress worked properly.
Right. And I just didn't have any faith in them working properly. Like to me, I was just looking at how broken the system is and saying it's going to suck really bad. And I would have very much preferred, I don't hold it against them exactly, but I'm like, I really wish all those people who had voted Green Party, and I don't even know if it was enough to make a dent, didn't, because then maybe we wouldn't have Donald Trump. Would we have
No, I mean, so we have
fixed the
Donald
two-party
Trump.
system? No, but it might have been slightly better than current like potential nuclear war in Iran. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, so I guess the rebuttal to that is Kamala Harris's campaign was awful.
it was shitty, just
It was
remarkably
awful.
shitty.
Like the so
I think she got screwed too. Like, I don't know how much to blame her for it, but
I
it,
mean, yeah, the Democrats. Okay, so they didn't. They did whatever they could to not run a primary,
yeah,
and Biden, you know, poops himself on debate stage in front of everybody, and they panic. And instead of still trying to hold somewhat of a primary and show any inkling of democracy, they're just like, well, the vice president will run now. So voters didn't get to choose their candidate because she would never have won a primary.
no.
She would never have won a
I don't know
primary.
who they thought would have won because it's
I
not like
mean,
Democrats have not been support none of the candidates that people seem to actually like. The Democratic machine does not seem to be supporting any of them.
yeah, but she couldn't even make it to Iowa when she ran for president. Like, there was
Mm-hmm.
no way she was winning a Democrat primary.
Mm-hmm.
So you put a real bad candidate, you anoint a very poor candidate that's tied. Vice president's already like, there's no way JD Vance ever has a chance of being president. Like, you're as
I
a vice president, like your political career is ruined
I
because
was
you're
listening
tied
to
to
a
the
podcast that was
administration.
talking about it. Was it the same? Did we maybe listen to the same one? Because I started listening to the one you recommended that has the supposedly conservative and supposedly.
Yeah, breaking points. Yeah.
I don't feel like they really are very ideologically biased much, period. But anyway,
I mean, Sagar is definitely very conservative. He's not vote he's not a like Republican as in like
not a
I
lunatics
only support the
conservative.
GOP, but he's a conservative guy. And
Got it.
Crystal is she's very left. And
Okay.
but
They're just
they'll both
reasonable.
yeah, and they're kind of, similar to kind of how we are. So I think I like Sagar, but he's a little too conservative for me.
Mm,
But they definitely don't toe the party line.
yeah.
And they will both tear into candidates on either side and their own side with no issue. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I like them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think they were saying this point, but like JD Vance is ruined. I mean, vice president, like, you're not great because you have to either, so she's running while Biden's still president,
Yeah.
so she can't say I'm going to do different things, or
Mm-hmm.
else you're talking down to your boss and your party and all that. So
Right.
you're really hindered as a vice president, as a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, enough where she couldn't say that she was anti-war. Like,
Yeah.
Trump lied, yes, but he said the message that people wanted.
Yeah.
She couldn't even muster, I'm going to stop the thing that's happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
Like, she couldn't even say that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so the Democrats lost because the Democrats ran a horrible campaign. And
Mm-hmm.
if people don't see that and we're just mad at Trump, we're just going to get another Democrat that's the same as the other ones, and they're going to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the Democrat Party establishment is what lost that campaign. It was what lost that election.
So if we let's pretend that okay, I believe that as bad as things are with the two-party system, and I do sometimes I have often come away feeling like Democrats would do exactly what the Republican Party were doing if they had the power to. Um, if they were competent enough, unless they are a controlled opposition of some kind. But let's pretend that my fears are right and that the Republican Party stays on the side of let's pretend that Nick Fuentes is the next guy to that where all the Republicans pivot to. Um, that dude is a Nazi who hates women, like hates them. And I don't think all of that's just shock jock stuff. I think the dude's a lunatic. But he's building a following. So let's pretend that things start going that way. And I think that's worse for society. I think that's worse in general. As long as I still have the two-party system, it's not going to be in my best interest to vote for anything other than Democrat. As long as, to me, the alternative really, really sucks. So how do we ever get to a three-party system or more or whatever or change things so that we have choices? beyond that? How are we ever going to get there
We
aside from just
we have
continuing?
to convince people that this best better of two evils argument is nonsense, and finally get at least a third of the population to go to another candidate. Or, like even if, say, like the ultra lefties break off, they vote for Green Party. And the true people that believe in freedom break off from the Republicans and the conservatives and vote for libertarians. Now we're not at like 48% to 49%. Now you have a competition. Now you got four parties in the game,
Mhm.
all running right around that 20%. Like
Well,
that's all you need. You need half from each side.
you need these people. We were talking about this in our North Georgia Can meeting last night. We were talking about how one of our efforts is trying to find people to run as write-in candidates for an election where there is no opposition. And I can get into why I feel very strongly that we need to do that. I believe that every single election needs to have at least two choices. Period. End of discussion. I don't care if they're ideologically the same. But by the time you get to the end, not just the primary, by the time you get to the end, you need two choices, at least two choices. Otherwise, the people on the ballot have no incentive to do better or be different from what makes them comfortable. Um, so, um, anyway, we were talking about how do you even get to the point where you have these people who are willing to run if most of the people, I asked, like, can any of us describe exactly what our county commissioners do, myself included? No. None of us can. So to me, the issue starts at, again, going back to getting involved at the most local level. People don't know how their government works at all. When I ran for mayor, I ended up voting on election day, and kind of at the last minute, I got in line at like 6:45 because polls closed at 7, and because I was canvassing up until the point that it got too dark for me to canvass anymore the day of, trying to get people to go out to the polls and vote. Um, and I'm sitting in line and I'm hearing people around me who have not looked at any of the candidates. They know they need to vote, and they're looking up and discussing the candidates to each other in line. And these are the
Mm-hmm.
people who are actually going to vote. So we are just so disengaged. I think it's less than a third of the population maybe vote, period. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
So I don't think we're ever going to get to the point that we have real conservatives split off and vote for conservatives and real leftists go split off and vote for leftists, leaving our two Republican parties high and dry. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point until we get people more involved on such a fundamental level. And I think this is like almost generations of work that we would need concerted effort put toward. And the only other way to fix that quickly, I think, would be some kind of social or monetary incentive, like you pay a fine in Australia if you don't vote. So since you
Yeah,
know you're going to have to
which
vote,
is awful because your right to not vote is just as strong as your right to vote,
and I would agree with you. I wouldn't like that. And I also think,
which Obama did float that out there.
yeah, I think I agree with having an incentive to vote, but not a punishment not to vote. I like economic, financial, and social incentives in a direction. Like to me, those are different things. Punishment versus reward. Um,
Yeah,
um, so anyway, I love our rabbit holes, but I'm gonna go back. So we did no kings, and the way and did we put a pin in this? Or should I go back to no
yeah. I
kings?
think we could put a pin in it. I think we
This is
could
my
keep
ADD brain
moving.
just like going in spirals, like we get to other things and then it goes back to here. Okay, now we're gonna
Yep.
and we keep adding different layers. of detail as we continue the spiral. So we did our event in Canton, Georgia, and Canton. I'm going to show you a map because I think it's fun. Canton, Georgia has this thing. Very nice. So we have been doing regular weekly protests. We're trying to spread, partly because we've had people want to spread, say, oh, I wish y'all would do something here. I wish people would come here and do this up in this town, blah, blah, blah. So we try to enable people. Come on. Here we go. We try to enable people in whatever kind of action they want to do. And a lot of times protesting is kind of like a gateway drug to actual involvement, which is one of my defenses of things like No Kings. You can get people to go to No Kings who never participate at all because it's like a big party, kind of. And then hopefully what you're doing is connecting with them and giving them information and getting them to come back. So it's sort of like having a potluck at a church where the community is welcome to come. You hope they will be like, oh, this is a nice church. I didn't have a terrible time. Maybe I'll come back to, Bible study or whatever. If
Hmm.
religion is a terrible example, but it's kind of the same.
No, but I think that's a good example. I mean I totally agree with the like the your thought behind it, like how
Yeah.
why you would organize, how you would, and what the goal is.
And it also can be because it's visible, like it can be encouraging to other people who had a bad day. Um, Something like my husband's business, I'm not gonna get too much into the details for privacy reasons, but his business has been directly affected by some of Trump's policies. It has hurt our pocketbooks, and it's a family business, so it hurts the entire family. Um, and so, you're coming home from a day of Trump just fucking your business in the ass over a barrel, and you drive by an intersection and there are people with signs out. That can be encouraging because it makes people feel like they're not alone, that there are people doing something to fight back, even if maybe that all that person ever does is go wave signs. But usually the people who are consistent are also active in other ways. The sign waving is just another fun thing that they like to do. Um, so we've been doing protests down here pretty consistently because it's a busy intersection. What you want is high visibility. So this is the intersection we chose, and this is, I guess they were doing construction here back then, but it's active, and there's a taco truck there now. So there's food. This is a pretty high rate of Latinos who live here. Canton has a higher percentage of Latinos as it's making up its population than Woodstock does. So like there's a Latino grocery somewhere around here, somewhere around, I think it's this one. There are some Latino owned businesses in here. And a lot of what we want to do too is let immigrant communities know that there are people on their side who don't want human rights violations committed against them at minimum. The right wants to paint us as, oh, we want all, we want pure open borders and we want all the illegals to vote. That's not it. Like most of us are just like, if we're going to deport them, can we do it in a way that's humane? Can we not send them to camps where they're clearly not getting fed and people are dying at a crazy rate? Can we not traumatize children? Can we try not to do that? And that apparently that's too high a bar for some people to even contemplate. So this is where we held our No Kings event, and we have stopped getting permits for our protests for a variety of reasons. When we started out, we were doing, my cat came to say hello. She's meowing at me. Do you remember Meringue?
Oh yeah.
She's still a good girl. So we've stopped doing uh permits for our protests because it's a lot of money. A lot of cities that want to disincentivize protesting have
Uh-huh.
started creating they've started
I mean,
saying,
So you could actually argue it's unconstitutional to have to get a permit.
I agree. And so that's also because we first started getting them to try to show, hey, we're trying to cooperate with you. We're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to make you happy, local government. And then we stopped doing it just because it's expensive. And it also felt like they were trying to charge us 17 arms and 6 legs. Now we have not ever tried to get a permit in the city of Canton because we abandoned getting permits on a regular basis, except but before we went over there. And the only time we get them is if we want to do something that requires a permit. Period. That's it. We're not going to do it anymore ever again, just for funsies. So we used to do we did our first No Kings down here in downtown Woodstock, and it's a really great location. This year, the group that did the one in downtown Woodstock is a different group from us. Um, they got a permit, but they were not allowed to get a permit for the business side of the street. So what we've seen cities do is they say, here's your permit. You have to put down how many people you expect. In theory, if you have a different number, more people, for example, show up than you expect, and it's very hard to know how many people are showing up for these things because not
Yeah.
everybody's going to RSVP. They'll use that information against you. And I've had somebody from the city of Woodstock argue with me and about how many people who actually showed up. And so that's another reason why I don't want to try to get a permit, because it's information that they can use against us. Say, see, you had too many people show up. So at this
Yeah.
actual event,
Well,
there
I'm pretty sure it says pretty clearly in the First Amendment, we all have the peaceful right to assembly.
they literally do not
It
care.
doesn't say that we have to get a permit to
I
peacefully assemble.
no, no, it doesn't. I have had like this, I fucking hate the city of Woodstock as a whole, not like every single person in it, but the things that they have done to undermine freedom of speech is appalling. Like there's a guy who runs the Parks and Rec department who has tried to get me and another guy who ran for office arrested at least twice, who keeps insisting that if the sidewalks are wider than a certain amount, then they're legally trails and they no longer count as public sidewalks. They're public trails, so we can't. And
Well,
that's been shot
they're
down.
public, paid by a taxpayer. You can still
Yeah,
assemble
yeah,
on
it's
it.
fucking public. Deal with it. They've had us say, "Oh, you're too close to the railroad. You have to move." Like this, they have, and they do this to people that they disagree with. Not everyone. We currently have straight up neo-Nazis with AK-47s and Trump flags currently hanging out at this same intersection. That I swear to God, the Cherokee County Democrats with a tiny table have been asked to move from that area multiple times because it's too close to the train tracks. And I don't know.
I'm gonna catch you quick on a fact check before we have
Yeah,
to catch it later.
yeah.
Just, I highly doubt any of them are carrying AK-47s. Maybe
Well, it looks like it.
AR-15s.
It
No,
looks like
because the AK-47 is almost impossible to get.
really.
Yes,
Well, let's see.
probably an AR-15.
Okay.
Yeah, an AK-47. I knew a guy that got one, that had one. I painted his magazine's chrome. He's a collector, and he wanted some Scarface ass looking gun. But AK-47s are heavily restricted. How much paperwork you have to do to be able to acquire one, and the background checks.
Are they always wooden down here? No,
No,
not the picture.
no, but I'm most likely they're carrying AR-15s, which look scary, but you can also make the AR-15 in all wood, and
Mm-hmm.
it looks like a hunting rifle. So
Yeah, I don't.
it's just about the plastic they put on them. But yeah, an
I can't see it.
AK-47 is
Yeah, I
not a
can't.
gun that people like have. Like you can't
Okay.
go to the store and buy one of those.
Okay, the guy who does it, one of the guys who does it is a real outspoken, like he's just real big on Second Amendment and just has to carry, which is fine. You know,
Yeah,
it's just a little douchey and obnoxious to do that in downtown Woodstock on a Saturday. But
agreed.
If
But yeah, I just
anyone
wanted to
has
catch
an
you on that too, because
yes,
that's just probably that's like a
yes.
little fact check.
Thank you for correcting me on that because my dad was a gun nut and he would have been offended at me. But okay, maybe an AR-15. I'm actually really
Most likely an
curious now
AR-15.
about whether or not it is an AK-47 because somebody thought it was, but that doesn't mean anything. Um, and
But I mean, you can see how similar they can look.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But anyway, like it's just we've seen a lot of selective enforcement and what a lot of places are doing now, and this time with this other organization that hosted the event in downtown Woodstock, the city of Woodstock jumped on this train of requiring insurance. Now, I don't even know how they got insurance because it's been very difficult for a lot of these organizations to get insurance for political events because there has been so much violence at political events. Um, People like I've heard from some small communities that don't know how to do a permitted event because they're like, well, they're saying I have to get insurance, and none of the places that will give insurance for this will do it for a political event. And anyway, it's crazy expensive. So this organization ended up paying about at least $1,000 in permits and fees to be able to do a protest. And I'm not into that. I'm not into that.
Yeah,
I don't
I
want to
agree with you
pay
100%.
for my fucking First Amendment right. I'm not doing it. So we just try to get people to line up on the sidewalk. The rules are you can I mean, the city of Woodstock even tried to put in an ordinance that if more than 3 people are gathered, they have to have a permit. And I don't know if they just decided not to enforce that or if it got struck down by their lawyers or something. It was clearly illegal, but cities can put anything they want in an ordinance and then you can get in trouble and, threaten with jail or whatever. And then you just have to take them to court to get it
Yep.
fixed. So,
That's what the government does is they basically put the blockades up to challenge you to take
mhm,
them to court. And if they can get away with it, then they can take your rights away. So you have
right.
to be willing to go the distance. But I mean, they're going to lose in court, guaranteed, because
Yeah, they will.
it's
They will. And
just
I
a
will take
blatant
them to court.
violation of your freedom of speech.
I will fight fucking tooth and nail. I will, and I think they might know that now, so maybe that's why they quit. I don't know. I haven't. It's hard to keep up with. Again, it's hard enough to keep up with things that are consistent, let alone constantly changing rules. So when we have our protests, and we also do protests in this area every Saturday. So we do them right now in Canton and Woodstock every Saturday, and we're going to move to another town as soon as we have enough people consistently showing up in one, or as soon as we may have a critical mass of people who want to host another one. Um, and it's just about serving the community's needs. There are some communities where we have people that it is important to them to protest, and they believe it matters. And to a certain extent, if you believe it matters and it builds community and you think it changes, then it does. It really does. And there are people driving by all the time who think it does nothing, but there are some people who are going to drive by and it means a lot to them. And I believe in a diversity of efforts. I don't believe that we all have to protest or that protest is the only thing, but it works for some people. Um,
Yep.
so we just tell them to line up. You cannot block the street, you cannot block the sidewalk, you cannot interfere with pedestrian traffic. So we just try to get people to line up as close to the grass as possible, staying on the sidewalk. We try to keep people off the grass. And we want them far away from the curb so that it's clear that you can walk through here.
Yep.
And then we usually people will slowly get closer and closer and closer to the cars because they want to show people their signs, and it's just and so you just have to occasionally correct them or tell them, please don't get on the grass, please don't go over here to please don't go stand on the train track so you can be in the shade, whatever.
Yeah, because
Um,
you don't want to invite the government to start cracking down.
no, no. So we try really hard to get people to be safe and legal with our protests. And if it's a bigger event, we tell people absolutely do not interact with counter protesters. If it's We can't control it, but we can put it out in the vibe that we would really rather you not. And it's because in bigger events with bigger crowds, there's a higher risk of bad behavior escalating and creating really bad problems versus if there's only 15 of us and one asshole drives by and goes, "Yay, Trump." I don't care what you scream at him. He's driving past.
Yeah.
He's probably not going to get out of his truck and try to beat you up. If he does, the worst thing he can do is hurt 15 other people if all of you pile onto him. Versus if we have like thousands of people or hundreds of people out there, it could get really bad really fast. That being said, we know that at any point in time, anybody could shoot us, anybody could run us over, and you just have to know that that's a risk. And to me, that's part of why it's important to exercise these rights is they all come with risks, and they wouldn't come with risks if they weren't important. But we also try to let people know that we're fighting for the rights of the asshole to say, "Yay, Trump," but you don't have to keep your mouth shut if you want to say something back to him, as long as you're not instigating a fight. And again, we can't control people, so the most we can do is vibes. Unless they're doing something illegal and we want to call the cops on somebody, which we really don't want to do, and nor do the cops want to have anything to do with that. We try to be as hands off as possible, and that's just our culture. Like as a group, we're a little bit more anarchic compared to some groups. So we had about 350 to 400 people show up in Canton, which is smaller than last year, but there also were more events in North Cherokee County, Georgia, which is where most of the people going to Canton would have come from. Let me see if I can find a map. So I don't feel bad about it because like we were all happy with the outcome. And also I felt a little bit like, so here's Cherokee County, and we have we sometimes do stuff with our neighboring counties, but this third No Kings I didn't feel as excited about. And a lot of it is because of feeling like we need to try to get people involved more. If 2 No Kings have gone by and you're still not going to your city council or your county commissioner meetings ever, you don't care that much. And it is like pulling teeth to get people to come to those meetings still. So it can be tiring to feel like, you can't make people do anything. All you can do is try to create scenarios where they want to do it. And I'm not superhuman. None of us are. So
Yeah. Well, see, and I feel like the right protest for this weekend was right there, and instead it was No Kings this last weekend.
what one would have been
But
right?
the right protest was there to be had, and it just wasn't, because I feel like, especially, I mean, all the No Kings protests to me, they actually meant no Republicans, no Donald Trump. And I think a more unifying message would have been no war.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the population does not want this war, especially how horribly it's going. And that I think would have drawn more people, and it could have united people instead of divided, and actually try to put pressure on all of our members of Congress to fight to do a war resolution vote and vote it down.
Yeah,
Take their power.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think that would have been better. And I think the people who are organizing it, the people who come up with a message, think that No Kings is a unifying message because we were founded fighting against an insane king. But as long as the other party can say, "Look, we still don't have a king. Hey, you protested really well. We still don't have a king," then it's not fucking resonating. But you can't argue against the no war. You cannot have a dumb argument against the no war. You can if you're an asshole. But the next thing.
But you have the population on your side for that one.
Yes, yes. The next thing that these organizations. So I think this organization might be affiliated with Indivisible. I'm not 100% sure. Let me keep scrolling down. I don't know. But May Day, they might have also started off on just their own. May Day is May 1st, and it historically has been a worker celebration. I think some of the unions first started it. So May Day Strong wants this May Day to be a really big uh, strike, a really big strike. And so what they are hoping is that we took these people, they are actually trying, these organizations do kind of think of here's the first step in the pipeline, here's the second. They actually do try to do this and they experiment with different things. And after the last No Kings, they did experiment with more efforts on getting people to organize locally, and some of it just didn't stick because it is much harder to get them to do that. So they are trying to get people to support this strike. And what the May Day Pledge says is these are their demands, and I'm curious what you think about it. Tax the rich, no ICE and no war, and no private army serving authoritarian power, and expand democracy, hands off our vote. So those are the official demands. And what they're asking people to do is don't go to school, don't go to work, don't spend money.
I think the message is vague, and I think it's going to be hard to get people not to work in an economy that is crumbling.
It is incredibly hard. It people just
Because people are struggling. I mean, gas
mhm.
here is already 360 a gallon.
Yeah. I hear a lot of people calling for strikes. Like nothing's going to change until we strike. We have to strike. But if the reality is that people literally can't afford to because they could lose their homes, their health care, die if they go on strike, you can go on strike in France and still go to the hospital the next day and not have lost your job and your health care. You know, I don't know. So what
Yeah.
I like the idea of it, and again, we try to support things that other people are excited about as long as it's not opposed to our values if we can. So what we are thinking to do is something we've been thinking of for a while, which is like have a free yard sale or swap meet or barter meetup or go give we're trying to take donations of food that we can go distribute to poor people because or give to a pantry. My husband was like, "Will they give us food now?" Like, the line of who needs food is growing. There's a growing population that are being priced out of everything. Um,
Yep.
so that's what we're trying to figure out right now. And I think a lot of what we're focused on now is like what kind of space can we access and what kind of event could we have in that space. And if we can't find a good place that we can host something like a free yard sale, um, that we're going to do something else different that is like of the ethos, but we're trying to decide what it is early so that we can plan ahead. And something that is annoying about trying to go along, we aren't picking these things. So we already have things that we're working on, and then we have national organizations that send out a ton of emails to people that are also in under our umbrella that say, do this, you should be doing this. And then we'll get asked, well, are you doing anything for No Kings? Are you doing anything for May Day? And even if we don't really want to do something, we kind of need to. So that's a little bit annoying sometimes. But I think that's just the nature of working in an environment like this. It's better than them not having ideas for us to do, I guess.
Yeah. I got so like I have problems with all three of their goals because they're horribly vague. Nobody, nobody, including all of our politicians, goes any deeper than these talking points. And so I think at the end of the day, it's just like this is just it's LARPing. It's for show. But like, what do you mean by tax the rich? Like, cool, we say that, if you vote for Democrat or Republican, they're both corporate parties. That's why they don't tax the rich anymore. They're
Mm-hmm.
both they're both captured by
Mm-hmm.
corporations. They're not independent. They're not fighting for the working man. You have a better chance locally, but on the bigger picture, not going to happen. And what do you
Mm-hmm.
mean by tax the rich? Our tax system is set off of W-2 labor. So the wealthiest people don't make money. They borrow against their assets.
Yeah.
So you can't just be like, oh, we're gonna just tax them more percentage. Like on what? Like so then like we need to overhaul the whole tax code. Like it's not just tax the rich and everything will be okay. Like it is not that simple. And you have to have a party that's willing to not take the donations from the corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And then no ice. You can't not have ice. You can definitely have a system of immigration enforcement that is humane and should
You could
be
definitely
and
not
doesn't
have
profile.
ICE because ICE wasn't started until like 2003. It would they ICE itself as an organization started after the 9/11 attacks.
Yes, but you have to have immigration enforcement. You have to have immigration laws. You have to deport people that are here illegally. You can't have an open border. And like we have a state. Like when I say state, that means country, you know.
Yeah.
So we have a state with borders and taxation. So you can't, and even if we don't like if we don't think our welfare system is good enough, we have a very big welfare state. Lots of
Mm-hmm.
the money is spent, lots of tax revenue is spent on things for the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to enforce immigration because you can't just have people coming in illegally and sucking off the taxpayer. Like there needs to be, and I mean, and you can reform immigration if that's the way people want to go. I'm not, I mean, but it all needs to be done legally, but our Congress is useless. But I mean, I'm not saying that you can't be for like a easier path to citizenship. And that's fine if you can do that and these people can be tax paying citizens then. Like that's fine, but you can't have people that aren't here legally that are getting benefits but not necessarily contributing in the same
So
way.
two things. One, I we should look into this because every time I look up whether or not people who are undocumented are actually getting benefits, what I'm seeing is that it is nearly impossible for them to do so. But they do usually pay taxes of some kind, if nothing else, sales tax on everything they purchase.
Yeah, but they're still using all the public systems, roads, all that stuff. That's all public infrastructure. And if you go to the hospital, they have to treat you. And then that gets paid for then by the taxpayer.
Okay, so you're including things like that in your calculus.
Yeah, I would say everything. I mean, it's everything.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you can reform the system and make it easier to become a citizen. That's fine if that's, the way that our elected representatives want to go, but then like let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't but you have to have some sort of immigration law and then to have a state. Like unless everything is privatized and nobody is taxed, if you're going to have a state that has a welfare system, you have to have immigration controls. I don't think there's any way around it.
So a lot of the time, so the second thing I wanted to say is I I don't know how many people who say abolish ICE literally mean get rid of any kind of immigration control. I know that I don't know anyone who does mean that, but and there are some people who are in these movements that don't even want to abolish ICE, they want to fix ICE. I am on the side of ICE being such a broken organization. Like if it were a department in a company, I would say fire them all, start fresh. fire them all, find somebody new to start a new department, call the new department something else, give them a different budget. Like I would just say these like it is just the things that ICE has documented proof of doing to me are so outrageous and so horrible that I mean that's also one of the arguments about closing Abu Ghraib prison. It's like this place is so terrible or was so terrible, had way too many people committing atrocities there. Just fucking close it because it's too bad to fix with just a band-aid. You have to start fresh. And I'm on that side with ICE. I'm disgusted with how we've been treating people and um that's my take on it.
Okay. And then number three, expand democracy. Like, what do we mean by that? Like, it's so openly vague.
That to me
Like,
is one of the most vague there, and I don't know what that means either. And
and oh, sorry, continue.
somebody looking at this and wanting to be bad faith or just being confused could say, well, you just said no ICE, and now you're saying expand democracy. Are you saying that you don't have to be a citizen to vote? Blah, blah, blah. Like there's, to me,
There
it's,
are people that believe that.
yeah, well, not many, but I think there are, I think there are, I think they're trying to balance being simple and more universal with being specific and confusing.
Yeah, I see. This is. I feel like this is the problem with you know, like Elizabeth Warren. Like, this is the stuff she says. She doesn't get anything done in Congress. The points are vague. They get the base riled up, but then they don't do anything because they don't have a plan for any of it.
I thought she did
You
get
know,
some
it's kind of
things
like the
done. I thought she
Republicans
was
and
fairly
the
productive.
Affordable Care Act. Like, they're like, we don't want the Affordable Care Act. Like, guys, it's been over a decade and you still don't have a healthcare proposal. Like, what have you been doing? Like you're so against
Yeah,
it. Write a healthcare plan then.
right.
Like,
Why
put it
don't
in
we have
Congress.
anything like a actual plan to go forward? None of these problems that we're facing are new. None of them. None of them are new.
Yeah,
Uh,
and there's still no solutions.
right. Thinks I'm raising my hand again.
Yep, it really likes when you raise your hand.
Speaking of raising my hand, didn't you have to leave by 2?
No, I said that's the latest I could start.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I'm still
But
going
no,
to
I
shut
mean,
us
it's
down
good.
because I
I
have
got,
to
I
go
got a
pick
little
up
bit
my.
longer before I got to get to my chores.
Well, let's go ahead and shut things down because I got to go pick my car up from the shop. Um,
Okay.
so how
Well,
would you did we get anywhere close to we didn't get really to is democracy the problem?
yeah, we didn't get too much on it. We can save for another episode more of an open conversation about democracy.
Well, we can
Um,
get to it next time.
because I could probably go for a while on it. But
Um,
I mean, all right, yeah, I get hit with a couple bullet points.
okay, let's do a preview of what we're going to talk about next time and then let's prioritize it. How's that sound?
Sounds good. So I think the biggest problem with just throwing the word democracy around is, again, which I think for another episode we talked about doing like terms and all that is I don't think everybody really understands what democracy is and the different versions of democracy. And we're all just taught democracy equals good. Like, America is going to go to war to get rid of a dictator so we can liberate the people and bring them democracy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
democracy isn't inherently good. And actually having like a true full democracy is actually really bad because it's majority control of the minority. That's 51% tyranny over 49%. So you don't want an unchecked democracy. You're gonna half your population is going to be lower than the other half. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what alternative would you suggest. Like I think it was Ben Franklin who said democracy is the worst form of government ever, except for all the other ones.
Yeah. I think it's Alexander Hamilton that said,
Was that
I
the
think
guy?
it's
Oh.
Hamilton. I could be wrong, but I believe it was him that said that government at its best case scenario is a necessary evil.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I mean, I think we need to go back to the system that our founders set up, which is the constitutional republic. So the Constitution is in place to protect the minority from the state and the majority.
So
So
you're
so even
saying
though
you're
even though
wait,
so you have 90% of people that want to vote away free speech. You
you're
can't.
wait. You're saying that the system that we have now, you don't think reflects what we had originally closely enough to even consider it the same thing?
No, you have to get a permit to do a protest. We are not following the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution is there to not allow that exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't abided by the Constitution at least the last 100 years, probably more or less since the Civil War. They tossed the Constitution out. So, like, one thing I would like to talk about in the future is secession. Because if you do believe in democracy, then you should believe in secession, a peaceful secession. Like, if Wisconsin doesn't want to be part of the union anymore, it should be able to vote itself to peacefully secede out of the union.
I I
And that's democracy.
I agree with that too. Are you the person, or was it somebody else? There was somebody else I was talking to about this, and I made the point, I was like, we are, I feel like, and we should have let and I'm saying we, even though I'm from Alabama, so if succession of the Southern states had worked, I would have been in a slaveholding place. I realize that, but
Slavery would have gone away either way. It was on its way out. The Western world was getting rid of it.
one would hope. But I still think that that so many of our problems can be traced back to not letting people do what they wanted to do. Even if what they wanted to do was shitty and dehumanizing and evil, people still want to do what they want to do. And if you make them not be able to run their lives the way they want, they don't automatically just agree with you. And so we've had this
Exactly.
simmering of racism and dehumanizing ideas about people since then, and maybe it's just human nature, but I've felt like I was telling somebody I feel like the North should have let the South secede and let them just do whatever the fuck they wanted, and all the people that wanted to be that didn't want slavery could come up here, and then other people will argue and say it wasn't really about slavery, blah blah blah. I
It's like any other war. Slavery had its part in it, but it
Yeah,
was also, the rights of the states, like the right to
yes,
secede, the right
yes,
to self-governance.
yeah,
And slavery was part of it, but Abraham Lincoln, I'm not, I don't have the full quote, but he basically did say, he's like, I will save the Union if it means keeping slavery, or I will save the Union if it means abolishing slavery. Like, he didn't care. Abraham Lincoln didn't care if there was slavery or not. It was he fought the war because of secession. He did
yeah,
not fight to end slavery.
yeah, and I don't.
And in the beginning, and then it became it's like all wars. Like they're not black
Well,
and white.
in one of my classes in college, one of the things that we learned was that um, uh, a big part of the reason was that, if I'm remembering correctly, Abraham Lincoln did not like slavery. He did not agree with it. But the reason he ended up outlawing it wasn't to make the war about slavery. It was because slavery was already incredibly unpopular in Europe. It had been abolished in Europe, and that he was trying to get support from Great Britain and maybe some other countries against the South.
Yeah,
That was one of the things that we learned, and that by abolishing slavery, that was like what do they call it? Is it it's not an anchor issue, it's like a lever where you stick it in there. Wedge issue. Isn't that a wedge issue? Where
Yeah,
it
I
guides
think that's
people,
right.
and it was a good wedge issue at the time. Um and yeah. But I kind of agree about the secession. If you don't want to, if you have a whole big group of people, if we are at the point where 50% of the population wants someone like Donald Trump, and they want women to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, and they want everything to be, they want to have everybody go to Christian schools or whatever it is that I'm thinking, is my worst case scenario. If we genuinely have a third of the entire population, a third to a half of them wanting that, let them have it. Let them do it. And I
Yeah.
guess that's where it gets into the states' rights, where if we actually had more differences in states' rights. Now, one problem with that is that you have people who end up stuck, trapped in a state that is ideologically, socially, morally, ethically, scientifically opposed to them.
Well,
Like,
so this is where you get to the problem with democracy.
mm-hmm,
So if you have a majority of the state that wants to secede, that's democracy.
mm-hmm,
Even if a minority are, say, a majority that's conservative, a minority that's liberal, yeah, the minority would be stuck, but that is democracy at work. So
mm-hmm,
that's why I think it's like such a slippery term that
mm-hmm.
needs a little more attention. And then yeah, I have one quote that I think can wrap this all up, kind of this whole conversation to do with democracy and our problems with our voting and like where we're at and the problems that we're facing. So this is out of that book I was talking to you about, Democracy: The God That Failed
Mm-hmm.
by Hans Herman Hoppe. But in there, he writes, his economic crisis hits, and an impending meltdown will stimulate decentralizing tendencies, separatist and secessionist movements, and lead to the breakup of an empire. And I think that's kind of what we're starting to look at, which
But
is kind of what we need because the American empire is out of control. And I think the only way to stop the empire, short of a complete catastrophe and collapse, is the states to individually secede.
but
Because if you secede, the federal government loses its power and its money.
well, I would wonder what comes after that. And then also, isn't that book, I have not read it, obviously I haven't had time to since you suggested it, but um is it, and does it end up being pro-monarchy, or is it
No,
just
no,
comparing
he
the
says
two?
states right in the beginning that he is pro democracy.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a thought of experiment of just comparing
Got it.
democracy and monarchy to get that kick started in your brain that democracy doesn't mean good just all on its own.
Right.
Like like you can have good monarchs and you can have good democracy. You can have bad monarchs and you can have bad democracy.
Yeah.
And
And
I just
particularly,
think the
go ahead.
I think that's like the biggest problem is we're just kind of taught democracy equals good. And it's just more complicated than that.
Mm-hmm. I still feel like as long as it is the best option, I'm okay with democracy equaling good in theory. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the best option, but I don't think democracy is inherently good.
I see. I see.
Like that's the thing. It's not inherently good.
It's definitely not good when you have systems of education that lead people to be borderline illiterate and then you want them to go vote.
Yep. Unless
Okay.
that's how you want your democracy to vote. If you want a
Yes, which is seems like
unaware
somebody
public.
wants, yeah, somebody wants that to happen. Or else we wouldn't be here. That's my theory. Um,
Yep,
all right. Well, glad we got into that a little bit. We can talk about it more next time. And
definitely.
yeah, we can just see where we go next time.
All right.
Hopefully, I didn't make our editing too complicated by bouncing around so much.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you can let a lot of it flow. I think people like to hear more of the natural conversation than an ultra edited one.
Mm-hmm.
But this is we're learning, we're trying,
Yeah,
so we can always try different things in different
yeah,
ways. It's we're not gonna have a home run right out of the gates, but I think I think we got something cool started here though.
yeah, definitely.
And
Oh,
we definitely have no problem with getting enough content for our
yeah,
time.
yeah, we can blab a lot. So speaking of the books, I wanted to show you a book that we're supposed to be reading. Let me find it. Had to think about what it was called. Robert E. Lee and Me.
Sounds fun. Nice
I
children's book.
know. So when I was in college, the um same class where we talked about how and why Abraham Lincoln got involved in the war. The class was about the South's perception of itself. And
Yep.
we ended up one of the papers that we read and then had to write a paper about was called The Apotheosis of Robert E. Lee, I think, or maybe that was the second. Actually, I want to see if there's a book, Apotheosis of Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee. Do. Maybe. No, I think that was the just the topic. Anyway. So I'm kind of curious about this one because this is a guy who is a historian and he's also in the military. And if you look him up on Reddit, he's done a couple of AMAs.
Okay.
You can find out about him. But this is what we're reading in our book club right now.
Gotcha.
And from what I've heard, the people are enjoying it and finding it thought-provoking. So,
Okay. I'd be
uh,
curious to hear more about it when you read it.
yeah, I ordered it on eBay and it was supposed to come in today and I think that they're going to send me my money back because I think it still hasn't come in, but
Gotcha.
we'll see.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
my current reading. I can't see my screen, but this is what this is what
For
I'm
a
getting
New
after right now.
Liberty. What is that about? For a new
It is the basically when the Libertarian Party started. This was one of the main guys in the 70s.
Oh, manifesto. You're reading a
But this is
manifesto.
before manifesto was a bad word.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's written in the 70s.
Okay.
So it's all the why it's a lot of Austrian economics
Mm-hmm.
and why you shouldn't trust the state and the government and how it tries to take power and take away your rights.
Mm-hmm.
So like the libertarian ideology. So I told you one of the books I said to read before you get to the other one is called Anatomy of the State. So that's like this book because this book's about 400 pages. That's this book, but like shrunk down to 60 pages.
400 pages? Is this
Yeah, this
guy's
one's a 400 page.
Libertarian Manifesto?
Yeah,
400 pages?
yep. But
Wow.
like he gets into like how the Federal Reserve works, how it devalues our money.
So
Like,
it's very specific and broad.
yeah. But he was like Austrian economist. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they get into the monetary stuff good.
Mm.
And then he also wrote a book like another like under 100 pages just called like The Origins of the Fed, and it's just short, sweet names, dates of how the Federal Reserve got started,
Mm-hmm.
which is super interesting, and it'd be a fun conversation for us to talk about that. And I think from your perspective, I would think it would be like the end, stop oligarchy like tour and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And my if you read the origins of the Fed, and you're like, oh, we've been in the oligarchy since 1913 when the banks
Mm.
created the Federal Reserve.
Okay, so okay. Have you ever listened to this podcast? Oh, I guess it's not here. Let's see. Do. Wait, no, why? What I wanted to ask is if you'd heard Planet Money podcast. talk
I've
about the
heard of it.
origin.
I think I've listened to some of it. It's an NPR one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I've
they
listened to some. I haven't really listened to a while. I used to listen to a lot of NPR and then I had to stop
why not?
because they're too biased.
Mm.
I don't trust all. I still read their articles depending on what it is, but they are
I
far
really
too biased.
I really like
I used
Planet
to
Money
think
a
they
lot.
weren't. I what?
I really like Planet Money a lot.
Yeah, and I'm not sure on that one. I haven't really listened to it in a long time. I'm just saying NPR as a whole,
Uh-huh.
like their
They
news
talk.
reporting is very biased. So I'm not. I stopped kind of paying attention as much.
I mostly disagree with you on that, but it's whatever. I think it depends on the show you're listening to as well. Um,
I mean, there's no right. There's nothing left. There's nothing that isn't left of center.
that they do.
Yeah. So I would say that's bias then at that point.
See, I get irritated with them sometimes because I feel like they are trying to be moderate sometimes and in the center when sometimes I think it doesn't call for it. But but they do have some good episodes about the Federal Reserve, which are really interesting. That's just what it reminded me of.
Yeah, no, I'd be curious. I said I've yeah, like because yeah, I read about the origins, and then like in this book that I'm reading now, he goes into a lot of how the Federal Reserve works and how it creates money and all
Hmm.
this. You know, a lot about when we got taken off the gold standard and what effect that had on the economy, even back
Hmm.
then, and
Hmm.
how I mean, and now it's just a complete disaster. So yeah, I think that's a huge problem our country is the Federal Reserve and our monetary system.
It seems screwy.
Yeah, well, it's fake. That's the problem. It's all fiat,
Some people would argue that all money is fake.
not when it's backed by gold.
Some people would still argue even that's fake because, can you eat gold? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
You can't eat it, but that's it'd be fun because I can break it down the best way possible for you. It's because it's not. I mean, gold has been the go-to currency of exchange for thousands of years for humans
Hmm.
because of its very specific values of being scarce. It's scarce. It doesn't break down. It's light enough to exchange as a currency. It's not heavy. Like you can break it down for its scarcity and value to small coins. Like gold, that's why gold and silver have always been what we tied to money to.
Hmm. They have a lot of episodes that talk about that too. You might enjoy listening to them and seeing what they say. I don't
Yeah,
remember
I'm definitely curious.
because they talked about us being on or off the gold standard in one that I heard recently.
Yeah, I'm curious what their take is on it because I mean it's caused. I mean that's why our money isn't worth anything anymore because we're not on the gold standard.
They really try to explain things as simply as possible too, which I like.
Yeah, which gets really hard when you start talking about economics and the Federal
Yes.
Reserve. That's
Yes.
what I've learned reading economics. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, this is a million times more complicated than anybody thinks.
Like this one is called Planet Money Buys Gold. They like to do real life experiments. Like right now they're working on publishing a book, and then they talk about all the money implications of publishing the book. But this was when they bought gold. They've done things like they made a t-shirt and they traveled around to see. I think they bought the cotton that the t-shirt was made of. That was in theory what they were trying to do. They were trying to trace like the entire process. So they end up going really in depth on things in very interesting ways.
Gotcha.
Big fan, big fan. Alrighty, well, I'm gonna let you go.
All
Sorry I
right.
keep yawning.
Because we just exercised our brains real hard.
Yes, I'm gonna blame it on that.
No, awesome. I can't wait to see the first one. I'm going to start doing some shameless social media plugs for us.
Yeah, hope
And you don't know how much I was looking forward to doing this one. Like this is so
good.
much fun for me.
Yay, good. I'm glad. I have fun with it too. I think it's a really good exercise. I think it's good. That's gonna do it for episode 2 of Schindler's Gist. Tyler and I have a lot more to say about democracy, what it actually means, why a constitutional republic is different, whether secession is a democratic act or the end of one, and we may get into that in episode 3. If anything we said made you want to yell at us, correct us, or share something you think we should know about or talk about, please let us know. You can reach us at schindlersgist@proton.me. That's spelled SCHINDLERSGIST@proton.me. If we got something wrong, please tell us. If you've got a topic you want us to dig into, please tell us that as well. And if you're in the North Georgia area and want to get involved in any of the civic work we talked about in this episode, the Saturday stands, the weekly protests, the write-in candidate recruitment for uncontested Cherokee County races, you can find NGACAN at ngacan.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.